Part 4. Heart-Pounding Panic. After the release and success of Super Mario Bros. In 1985, there was no doubt gamers wanted a sequel. But in 1986, the only thing Mario they got was Mario as a referee in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! A few Miyamoto games were scratched during this time, including a remix of all 3 Donkey Kong games. But what fans wanted was Mario back in the Mushroom Kingdom, so that's what Miyamoto would give them. In Japan, Nintendo released the Famicom Disk System, or FDS, on February 21st, 1986. It was a peripheral for the Famicom that used proprietary floppy disks called disk cards for data storage.
カセットの時代からディスクカードの時代へゲームの世界を変えるファミリーコンピューターディスクシステム新登場。本体にラムアダプターとディスクドライブを接続し3倍の能力を持ったディスクカードを使うと
It was announced but not released for the North American Nintendo Entertainment System. Through its entire production span, 1986 to 2003, 4.44 million units were sold. Most of Miyamoto's time went towards his first project for the Famicom Disk System, The Legend of Zelda. It was an action-adventure game where the player controls a young boy named Link, trying to collect the 8 fragments of the Triforce of Wisdom in order to rescue Princess Zelda from the antagonist Ganon. His second project for the FDS would be Super Mario Bros. 2. But since Miyamoto was working on Zelda, Takeshi Tezuka, the assistant director of the first Super Mario Bros., joined Miyamoto to develop the sequel. In just 4 months, they had finished the game and it released in Japan less than a year after the original on June 3rd, 1986. The game took elements from an arcade port of the first Super Mario Bros., also released in 1986, called Versus Super Mario Bros. This game is harder than the original Super Mario Bros., with fewer warp zones and power-ups, and more enemies. Visually, it looked exactly like its predecessor, but it was harder, much harder. Smooth level designs were replaced by insanely tough obstacle courses. Adding to frustration, some mushrooms were poisonous. Some warps sent you back instead of forward, and weather would even affect Mario mid-jump. Enter the Game Master. He was a man who worked for Nintendo of America named Howard Phillips. Known for his red hair and choice of bow ties, he was an early employee of NOA and later was instrumental in the forming of the Nintendo Power magazine, as well as being its first editor. He was the official Game Master and one of 3 executives responsible for North American game development.
Most people don't think that I actually get paid for doing it, but I do. It's serious business. It really is.
Phillips also got to play new Nintendo games before they were released in North America, and president of Nintendo of America, Manaru Arakawa, really respected Phillips' opinion as a Western gamer. So, when Phillips played Super Mario Bros. 2 and found its difficulty was relentless, Arakawa knew this could be a problem. It hadn't been long since the video game industry crashed, and retailers were still skeptical and thought the video game craze could just be a fad that would soon be over. Also, Nintendo didn't want their new company mascot, Mario, to be grouped with all the other mascots that were out at the time. Mario was different. Super Mario Bros. Had sold 40 million. If they released Super Mario Bros. 2 and North American gamers thought it was too difficult and the game failed, it could reverse all that Nintendo had built up to that point. So, they would turn to whom else but Shigeru Miyamoto. During the development of Super Mario Bros. 2, Miyamoto had actually spent more time helping director Kinsuke Tanabe develop another game, Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, or in English, Dream Factory, Heart-Pounding Panic. The game came from a prototype, which was developed and directed by Tanabe. The gameplay model emphasized vertically scrolling levels, with 2 players cooperatively tossing each other and ascending by way of throwing and stacking blocks. However, the prototypical implementation of this scrolling and multiplayer action was deemed to exceed the physical capabilities of Nintendo's consumer hardware at the time, and the gameplay was ultimately deemed to be lacking. Tanabe said, "The idea is that you would have people vertically ascending, and you would have items and blocks that you could pile up to go higher. Or you could grab your friend that you were playing with and throw them to try and continue to ascend. The vertical scrolling gimmick wasn't enough to get us interesting gameplay." When Fuji Television came to Nintendo to promote their Yumi Kojo 87 event, Tanabe's concept was to be brought back and used to create a game using the Yumi Kojo festival mascots. The game's protagonist would be a family consisting of siblings, Imogen, Lena, and their parents, Papa and Mama. Nintendo created the rest of the game's characters, including the main villain named Mamu. Using the advice of Miyamoto, Tanabe added in horizontal scrolling opposed to just vertical scrolling, which was the original idea. Also, two-player co-op was taken out. Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic takes place within a book with an Arabian setting. All 4 characters are optionally playable, though the game is not fully completed until the player clears all levels using each protagonist. Also, each protagonist had his or her own particular traits. Imogen is the most balanced, with average speed, jumping, and strength. Next is the sister Lena. She can float midair for a short period of time, but is lacking in speed and strength. Papa is the fastest, with average strength, but can't jump as high. Lastly is Mama, who can jump high, but is lacking in speed and strength. There are a lot of similarities to Super Mario in the game, like coins, POW blocks, and warp zones. Even the soundtrack was composed by original Super Mario Bros. Composer Koji Kondo. While working on the game, Miyamoto was worried it was too similar to Super Mario. So when Nintendo decided the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2 was too hard, they canceled its stateside release and turned to Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic. They would change Imogen to Mario, Mama into Luigi, Lena into Peach, and Papa into Toad. In the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, for the first time, Luigi got his first distinctive characteristic traits. Luigi could jump higher than Mario, but had very bad traction. Now he got his first original character model as well. Building on Mama's model made him noticeably taller than Mario. Miyamoto also originated the fluttering animation of Luigi's legs to justify the enhanced jumping ability seen in the corresponding Mama character. To reduce the game's overall difficulty, the designers made minor technical changes. They opted not to retain Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic's ultimate requirement to complete each level using each protagonist. Therefore, this new Super Mario Bros. 2 can be completed in only one pass by any combination of characters. And in tradition of the Super Mario series, they added the ability to run by using the B button. However, Doki Doki Panic wasn't a Mario game and didn't play like one. No hidden secrets, no Koopas, no Bowsers, no Fire Mario, few power-ups of any kind, and strangest of all, no more stomping on enemies. The enemies, like the Shy Guys or various fruits or vegetables, were hefted up and hurled into other enemies. Mario defeated final boss Wart by tossing fruit into his mouth, choking the giant frog, and the whole game turned out to be Mario's dream. Even with all this, North American gamers loved it once it released on October 9th, 1988. Even though it wasn't a real Mario game, they didn't know that, and the development of the game was heavily influenced by the great Miyamoto. The North American Super Mario Bros. 2 sold 10 million copies and was the third highest selling game ever released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. North Americans finally got to play the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2, changed to the Lost Levels on the Super Nintendo and Super Mario All-Stars, released in 1993. In 1992, the North American version of Super Mario Bros. 2, based off of Doki Doki Panic, was released in Japan as Super Mario USA. But While the North Americans were playing Super Mario Bros. 2, in 1988, the Japanese were already playing a new Super Mario game, Super Mario Bros. 3, a game that Americans wouldn't get a glimpse of until 1989 in a movie called The Wizard. Hey guys, thanks for watching and please subscribe. Please also comment and tell me if you like anything or don't like anything. And next week's episode is actually going to be a break from the history of Super Mario, and it's going to be an episode about the history of amiibos. So stay tuned and catch that, and after that we'll definitely be getting right back in to the history of Super Mario.
So I'll just stay up